God created the heavens and the earth, and in the earth he created a man named Adam, and from him a woman named Eve. And he told them that they could eat of any tree that they wanted to, except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He said that in that day that they would eat of that tree, they would die. And Eve was at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and this devil who took the form of a serpent tempted her. And she partook of the fruit, and she gave the fruit to Adam, and he also partook of the fruit. And through this they sinned against God, and they died. He said, in that day that you shall eat of the tree, you shall die. Adam went on to live 930 years after that day. So the death that he was speaking of was not a physical death. It was a spiritual death. He died to his relationship to God. And his physical death was an outcome of his spiritual death. So he already was dead. He was already dead in trespasses and sins. And God drove them out of the Garden of Eden. He drove them out, and he put an angel at the gate so that they would not be able to come in there anymore. And why again? Because there was the tree of life also. And he drove them out so that they would not partake of the tree of life and live forever. He did not want them to live forever in the dead state that they were. That's why he drove them from the Garden of Eden, and he didn't allow them back anymore. And then Adam knew Eve, and Eve gave birth to a son, Cain. And then she gave birth to another son, Abel. And Abel was a sort of a shepherd who took care of a flock, and Cain was a gardener. And Abel gave his sacrifice, and Cain gave his sacrifice as well. God respected Abel's sacrifice, but he did not respect Cain's sacrifice. And God came to Cain and said, why is your face downcast? Why are you depressed? Why are you sad? If you do good, you will have praise. But if you do evil, sin lies at the door, and it wants to overtake you. But you need to overcome sin. But he did not heed God's warning, and he called Abel his brother, and then he killed his brother because he hated his brother, and he killed him. And then God came to him and said, Cain, what did you do? And he did not even want to admit that he did anything wrong, and God punished him, and he didn't even want to receive the punishment that God gave him. And this shows that sin was in the world. The very first person who was born in this world was a murderer who killed his own brother. And he didn't just kill his own brother. It's one thing he killed him and then would have repented and God would have forgiven him of his sins, but he killed his brother and he justified his action and he left God. He left the face of God and he didn't want anything to do with God anymore. And from him were born other people, and they did not follow God. And sin increased, and it grew that the whole world was filled with wickedness. Every imagination of their heart and every thought that they thought was evil continually. And God only found one man who had faith, Noah and his family. And he told him that he was going to judge the world with a flood, and he told Noah to build an ark. And he built an ark, and he saved his family and the animals, and God flooded the earth. Imagine, every single person that was on the planet died because they did not follow God and they did not want God. Some people speculate that there could have been 12 billion people on earth back then, because people lived a long time and there was no disease and there was food everywhere. They could have lived for a very long time, and there could have been a lot of people. More people than might be even now upon the earth. And only 8 out of, let's say, 10 billion people survived. God judged every single one else, and they were all drowned in the flood. And from Noah, God created a new civilization and a new world. But sin was still inside of Noah. And those who were born from him were born in sin, and sin once again started to increase and expand.